All right, ready? Hello, my name is Michael Markwald, and I'm making this video from inside the Anoka County Jail, where I'm currently being held without bail by the U.S. Marshals on a federal indictment of conspiracy to distribute methamphetamine. I have several different reasons for making this video, first of which someone has to start speaking out against a group of individuals directly responsible for the vast majority of methamphetamine that hits the streets here in this county. This organization actually goes by the name the Anoka Hennepin Narcotics and Violent Crimes Task Force, who was actually put into place in an attempt to remove drugs from the streets, but that just simply is not the reality of the situation. Every time a person is caught with any amount of meth in Anoka County, an officer from this task force will show up to conduct an interview. And an interview is exactly what it is. It's the opportunity to begin working for them. If you agree, they will withhold your charges. They'll instruct you not to inform your probation about your recent arrest if on probation. And they will, of course, allow you to continue using and selling drugs as long as you provide them with 3 additional individuals distributing narcotics by actually purchasing drugs from the suspect for the task force. They call this a controlled buy. Then they go ahead and arrest those 3 individuals and offer each of them the very same opportunity. So those 3 turn into 9, 9 into 27, and so on. I think you get the picture. This task force is running a Ponzi pyramid scheme, obtaining a never-ending stream of